Thank you, Sondra and Ciara, for joining me today to celebrate Leonard. And I think I just kind of want to hand it over to you because I don't feel like you need much introduction for who you are. You've just had such an amazing career and presence in the breathwork community, Sondra, and teaching on physical immortality and Babaji. So I feel like there's just such a wealth of experience and wisdom in you that we would just love to hear from you, maybe about some of the early days with Leonard. I know you were there at Theta House when you were all exploring with the breath work in the hot tubs, and it was all just very new and cutting edge.
And the crazy commune. I was very lucky because, I was sent to California by the divine, and I was having some problems. I had pain in my body for 13 years, which started when I saw my father in the casket. And then I had my hair falling out after a divorce, and I was having car accidents. So I needed a lot of help. And I was crying one night in an S seminar, and these guys said, "What's your problem?" And I said, my car, I'm always having these car accidents. And they said, "Oh, there's this new guru in town. We'll take you to him." I said, "I'll try anything." So on Sunday morning, they drove me out to Santa Cruz in the mountains, in the hills. And there was this guy there, and he had a flip chart with a white pages. And I thought that was so unusual to have that outside. You never see that. And then on the flip chart, he had listed the 5 biggies, which are the 5 most negative consciousness factors, he said, that keep you from being in bliss. And I looked at that list and I said, somewhere in that list is the cause of all my problems. Maybe this guy is my teacher. And, he had on there, number 1, the birth trauma. Number 2, specific negative thoughts structures. Number 3, parental disapproval syndrome. Number 4, unconscious death urge. And number 5, other lifetimes. And I thought, wow, I haven't handled that. Okay, so then I thought, well, maybe this guy's my teacher, and I forgot about it. Well, 2 weeks later, I was sitting in an astrology class, and suddenly some guy in the back said, "Who wants to try this new experiment?" And my hand went up like this. I thought, what in the heck did I volunteer for? I turned around, it was the same guy. It was Leonard Orr. And he said, "Okay, you have to drop out for 5 days and come with me." And I thought, oh my God, I just started a new job. How can I was a nurse, and I was a nurse at Kaiser Hospital in Berkeley. And I had just started a job. I had no vacation coming. And he said, "Okay, you have to come with me." And I thought, oh my God, my hand went up. So I went to the head of the whole hospital. Not, the chief. And I said, "Sir, I need 5 days off for my spiritual development." I think he was so shocked to hear that from anybody that he probably didn't even know he said yes. I mean, it was a miracle, right?
Fantastic.
So 5 days off, even though I was not entitled to any vacation. So then Leonard took us out to this place, which was kind of a former nudist camp, which is riot. And in this was out in the hills. And then, there was a California hot tub sunken in the ground. So the night before, we were sitting down, and he put us all in these sleeping bags. Now, this is crazy. And he said, "Don't get out of these sleeping bags till 12 noon. I thought, what are we doing? So then he was trying to activate our birth trauma by being claustrophobic or whatever. So he explained the birth trauma, and I thought, wow, this is really out there. Then after 12 noon, we got out of the sleeping bags and we got in line. I was number 3 in line. So there was 2 people before me. And he was in the water, which was too hot. It was 106 degrees. Wow. And we would go in with a snorkel and a nose plug, and he would hold us in the fetal position, and we would breathe. Okay, so I got in. I was number 3. And I don't know, I let some big noise came out of me. Wow. It wasn't like a scream, but it was a noise. That's all I remember. And then they carried me and put me under this tree afterwards. And I looked up and I saw all the auras around the tree. I had never seen an aura in my life. I said the leaves all had an aura. I thought, oh my God, this is magic, you know, this is some magic. So then I said to Leonard, and it just came out of me, how do I become a rebirther? He said, and then he was so out there. He said, handle your birth trauma and move in with me. And I thought, oh my God, now he wants me to move in with him. This guy is crazy. And of course I did it. And so 8 of us moved in this old house in Haight-Ashbury, and it had been kind of a drug den in the past. You know, it had a horrible racy history. And we had no furniture, but we had a hot tub in the basement.
That sounds typical classical Leonard.
With the snorkel, and the water was too hot, so it was so activating. People went crazy. But we went to work, and I was still a nurse during the days. And fortunately, I was a nurse in a prenatal clinic, which was the perfect preparation.
Amazing. Wow.
For your rebirth. Yeah. And, you know, at night we would come home and rebirth each other, and we all changed. We changed. And all of our worst problems ended, and we had better relationships, better health, and everything. And it was a miracle. So that's my story.
So were there like lots of projections going on in the house?
Everybody was going
activated.
In fact, I had to sleep with earplugs because people were vomiting during the night, screaming. No. They were going through all kinds of traumas. Yeah, because the water was really too hot. We finally figured out we should turn down the temperature.
Yes.
But go ahead. You talk something now.
Oh, wow.
Good. Tell us how you got all wrapped up in all of this fun.
Yeah, so I went to India because Leonard had a training in Chandigarh.
That was your start?
That was
rebirthing?
In
so India.
Sondra was my first rebirthing teacher.
Lucky you.
Breathing in Glastonbury. And then Zerom, who's no longer with us, said, you've got to go and try Leonard's training. So I went over to India. Partly because it was cheaper, would you believe? Spain, really?
Yeah.
Oh, and I had the best time ever with a whole bunch of Indians on the course, and it was really good. And I'm like, this man's such an oddball. Anyway, so I done you know, like liberation breathing, and Leonard said, all right, who's done 10 sessions here? So I put my hand up, and he said, all right, you're leading a group.
Yeah. Team leader right there.
And I didn't know that you know, his method was different to yours.
Yeah.
So I led a whole group of people down the
I didn't know that.
It was the Leonard Lilas, big time.
That's hilarious.
He was always pushing us.
Totally pushing us.
Yes, yeah.
And so that was my introduction to Leonard.
Beautiful.
And so Leonard and I were doing wet rebirthing. Now, it was hard to travel and find hot tubs everywhere. You know, I mean, we had bizarre stories. Like once I was in Hawaii and I needed a hot tub because we thought we needed the water to create the memory of the womb.
Right.
So one night I went to this place where they were selling hot jacuzzis in Hawaii, and we rented the place all night. And everybody was really going through a lot, and some people were screaming, so somebody called the cops. So the cops came in and they saw us and they thought, you guys are on drugs. I said, no, these people are just breathing. He said, why are you in the nude? Because I said, because the water's hot. Anyway, so what happened was I said to one of my assistants, I have to handle this client in the water. Go out there, put a towel on, and talk to these cops and explain to them what we're doing. And then one of them said, oh, I think I'd like to try this rebirthing. I was on an airplane and I picked up the Vogue magazine, and it had an article about this guy who had studied birth and so on. And he wrote this book, Birth Without Violence. And I thought, wow, I need to get this book. So I read it. It was so powerful because it's written by an obstetrician. Okay.
Yeah.
So I said to Leonard, look at this part of this book. It's so intense. It describes what the baby goes through right before it comes out of the womb and blah, blah, blah. Written by an obstetrician. So I said, Leonard, let's have our client read this out loud. The guy was named Stephen Camp. I'll never forget. And I said, Stephen, you sit here, and Leonard was over here and I was here. I said, read this out loud, and thinking that this would activate his birth and we put him in the tank, right? he got so activated reading this that he went into a spontaneous breath session and started having birth memories. And he was sitting on the couch. And you know what? It was so amazing. This guy went through his whole birth and he wasn't in the water. And so now we encourage people to do dry rebirthing first and wet rebirthing later, because it's so powerful that we do it the reverse. Instead of wet rebirthing first, we do wet rebirthing later.
Interesting stories about Leonard.
Well, yeah, I mean, I used to actually be his, if you can believe it, I drove him around. I was his chauffeur.
I totally believe it.
My little sports car, you know. And I'm glad I met him early on, because when I met him, he was very sharp, spiritual channel. But he was always bizarre, you know. He was all, you know, I think to be a pioneer, it takes that. You have to be, you have to be different. And he was totally different.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Okay, well, anytime you want to bring us to Oregon, let us know. If you and, you know, thank you for having me on this call. I think I'm complete, right?
Okay, yeah. Well, Sondra, I wanted to ask you too, before you do go, I did have one question. I want to know your first meeting with Babaji, and did you go with Leonard? Did you guys go to Leonard and meet Babaji together?
Yeah, absolutely. What happened is I was running the office in the Rebirthing Center in 301 Lions Street, San Francisco. So I was opening the mail, and we got this very strange letter. It was addressed Leonard Orr, 301 Lions Street, San Francisco. No return address, and it was stamped India, but no town. So I opened it up, and it was very strange. It was a little piece of old, like a school paper you would get in another dimension. It was like an old, I don't know.
Old paper.
Old paper, and printed in pencil. It said, "Come to India." No signature. Can you imagine? So I said, "Leonard, we've been called," you know, and so Leonard immediately started putting together a group to go to India. We didn't even know who was calling us, by the way. So I wanted to go. I didn't have any money because I had just given up my nursing career to be a rebirther. So I had to borrow the money. So I said, I need to be on this trip with Leonard. So I think it was 8 of us. We went to India, and he had this brilliant idea. And he was so brilliant in this way. He said, okay, all of you, let's all spread out and go to different parts of India and look for gurus. And then we're going to come back in 2 weeks and meet in New Delhi and compare stories.
Wow.
So I said, okay, I volunteered to go south and meet Rajneesh. And I went in the train with my boyfriend, and I got really clear that was not for me.
Because you'd have had to wear an orange.
Not only that, I had to wear orange my whole life. And, you know, it was crazy because he was talking in Hindi and everybody was throwing themselves on the floor, screaming. They were all having a primal, and nobody was breathing. And, you know, it was
very intense.
Right. So we came back, and then in New Delhi we met, and Leonard had met this guy named Abu, and he was very powerful. We thought maybe he was the one. So anyway, we went there back, and we all met in New Delhi, but one girl was missing. Okay. Diane
Hinterman.
You can't find a missing person in India. Impossible.
No.
So we had to go back without her, and we were kind of worried. She had gone north. She didn't come back for 7 months or something like that. And I was there when she walked into Theta House, and I said, "Where have you been?" She said, "I found the real Babaji," if you can imagine. I said, "Leonard, we have to go back right now." So we went right back, and and then we went to Bob, we went to Huracan, and it was so intense, you know, it was so intense. And I mean, it's a long story what happened, but I mean, you know, we were just blown away by that, and it changed our lives forever. Yeah, I went with Leonard on the first trip. Thank you for that. Thank you. I want to thank him for that.
Yeah.
I'm sure Babaji's looking after Leonard now.
Oh, yes.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you, Sondra. Right? Yes, yeah. Okay. Beautiful to see you.
So thank you for doing this.
Yes, it's my pleasure.
And I'm so appreciative of Leonard for the career I have, you know.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you, Sondra.
Yeah. So I was organizing for Leonard in Glastonbury. And it's like, I love Glastonbury. It's such a great town. So I put a message out on this email list in Glastonbury saying, can someone host Leonard and we'll do an energy exchange and give you sessions? And this woman said, yes, please. I'd love him to come and stay with me. So I was cat sitting that week for a friend. And so Leonard went to this woman's house, and, you know, he'd go in the bathtub and he'd raid her bookshelf and bring a book out, and he'd start reading it, fall asleep, and the books got wet.
Yes.
And after him being there for about 3 days, I get this phone call from the lady saying, please, can you come and get him? He's ruining all my books. Like, no, oh my gosh. And I'm like, what am I going to do with him? Because my friend had said no one else is allowed to stay in the house. And I had to put him somewhere, so I brought him to the house, and you know, he needed a fireplace, so we put him in the front room.
Yeah.
I hope she doesn't watch this.
I was going to ask, is this going to be the confession to your friend?
Yes. And he didn't shut the curtains at night, so he'd have the fire, and this is a house where the house is right on the pavement. There's no front garden.
Oh, okay.
People
right
walking
on the street
by would see this little man
in front of the fireplace at night.
by the fire. And I was like, oh my God, how, you know, like, because you know, I don't want the neighbors to see. And then after,
interesting.
Yeah, I know.
It was triggering all kinds of things for you. I was like, what are people going to think?
Finally, we had a lecture which I'd opened up to the public to come and listen to. And after the lecture, Leonard, I went to go and give a final session to the woman that had, you know, hosted Leonard. He invited the whole lecture back to the house. I got back there, and there's this house full of people, and a woman coming down the stairs going, oh, I found a towel in a cupboard upstairs. And I went, what?
This was where you were house sitting? Well, it's like Sondra was saying earlier, you know, Leonard, I mean, he was Leonard. He was doing his thing.
He was doing his thing, you know. And, and, you know, he was an absolute joy to be around. I had some amazing experiences, and I talked about the last, you know, a couple of years ago about Babaji, meeting Babaji with him, and you know, the Lilas, Leonard Lilas were wonderful, really
Leonard Lilas, yes. So many of those.
And it's, you know, it's a tradition that is really about teaching us, you know, all these tricks that get played on us.
Right, you couldn't get that from a textbook or a classroom education. It's just it's amazing.
I was in Rishikesh with Elvie, and it was the beginning of going away for 6 months. We went to India, we were going to Australia, and then coming back to India. And I said to Elvie, I need to get some money out. So we went to an ATM together, and I put my card in, and the next minute the ATM shuts down.
With your card in it.
And it keeps my card, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm in India,
right,
at the beginning of my trip. How am I going to get another ATM? It was a Sunday. It was a standalone ATM, and the bank associated with the ATM wasn't open.
Of course.
I'm like, they're not going to give me my car back, are they? What am I going to do? And Elvie said, look, let's just go outside. She was there. She saw the whole thing. She saw the card go. We step out onto the street, and this old Baba comes up to me and says, look, in Rishikesh, they have a night puja where they put an oil lamp into the river saying prayers. And it's such a wonderful, wonderful thing. And he said, oh, can you buy me a candle for the evening puja? And I said, oh, look, my debit card's gone, but I do have some rupees. I know it's really important for you. So he said, yeah, please take me to a shop, and there's a little boy with me. And so Elvie bought the boy a candle, and I bought him a candle too. Then I went back to the ashram, and I was sharing a room with Chitra. And I said, oh, Chitra, you'll never guess what happened. my debit card's been taken. Look, it's not. It was in my purse.
Wow.
I was like, wow. I didn't put it there. Elvie was there. She saw it.
Yeah.
And because I helped the Baba.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful,
Amazing.
wonderful Lila. Yeah.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful story and experience and demonstration of exactly like the magic. Those like
The
things just happening.
magic,
Yeah.
the experiences that the logical, and this is what I love about this work and why breath work is spiritual.
Yeah.
It really is spiritual. You know, there are things that the logical mind needs to shut up, sit down and understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Happen
Yeah.
that materializing and dematerializing.
Yeah. Just
Yeah.
completely outside of the framework of the mind. That's what I love about this work. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely love it. Yeah.
Ciara, beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm
You're
glad you stayed
welcome.
on to share that story.
Yeah.
Yeah.